I've talked to a lot of amazing people on this podcast, but if you're like me, you want to go deeper. So, where can you learn from the most remarkable people? That's Masterclass. This year, learn from the best to become your best with Masterclass. Don't just talk about improving. Masterclass actually helps you do it. And right now, our listeners will get an additional 15% off an annual membership at masterclass.com/ratchet. Get 15% off right now at masterclass.com/ratchet. Masterclass.com/ratchet. Everyone's favorite is back. Kiki Palmer's podcast is back, and it's too good. She has questions for days, and now she's diving into the brains of entertainment's best and brightest to get some answers. From Snoop Dogg to Jordan Peele to Quinta Brunson to John Stamos to Amy Poehler, Kiki is getting to the bottom of the burning questions that keep us up at night. I can't wait to listen to her episode with Quinta Brunson. If you love Kiki, you'll love Baby, This is Kiki Palmer. She's her most authentic self, going all in on everything in her life and in the lives of her celebrity guests. Follow, watch, and listen to Baby, This is Kiki Palmer on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. And now watch full episodes on Kiki's own YouTube channel. Listen to Baby, This is Kiki Palmer early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus. Have you seen this challenge online? It's called the Breaking My Heart Challenge. And people are posting pictures of their parents from back in the day. And they're like, oh, my mom used to break hearts back in the day. So I wanted to make one of those. So I'm digging through this box of pictures and I'm like, is this really like the best way to organize the family photos in giant boxes in the basement? I found a solution from our friends at Legacybox. You're going to love Legacybox. For a limited time only, you can visit legacybox.com/ratchet and save 50%. That's legacybox.com/ratchet to shop 50% off. This sale won't last long. Legacybox.com/ratchet. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and those who don't identify as either, you are listening to Ratchet and Respectable. I'm recording this episode on Monday, November 4th, the day before the American elections. It is 2 p.m. in the afternoon, my time. America just had daylight savings time. So now I'm 7 hours in the future. My core audience isn't even awake while I'm recording this. I have complete anxiety. I'm self-diagnosed, but I'm 100% sure that's what it is about the election tomorrow, more so the outcome of the election. And then whatever crazy shit is coming down the pipeline after that, because it's not going to be as simple as a winner is declared and then everyone just accepts the results. I know that it's going to be crazy. The Republican nominee has said as much. Like if the results of the election do not go in his favor, it's going to be chaos. Some crazy shit is about to happen. And I'm afraid it's going to be crazy shit that makes January 6th, as crazy as that was, look like a walk in the park. Like we are in for, I believe, crazy times ahead. This is something that I very much would like to be wrong about. I genuinely hope that I am. I don't know. I don't think I'm overreacting. I don't think I'm overthinking it. Like I feel like bullshit is coming. That's so sad, isn't it? Like to have like actual like real life anxiety. I didn't vote for George W. Bush, but I don't remember thinking it was the end of the world when he got elected. And even when he was in office, remember we thought like Bush was the worst thing that could possibly happen. We were like, this president is a goddamn idiot. We thought GW was the worst it could get. And like that dude, I'd take him any day. I mean, not over Kamala, but over Trump. His publicist has worked overtime. Him and his little friendship with Michelle Obama that's like kind of smoothed out his edges and redeemed him. Trump said something about Michelle Obama the other day, a veiled threat, not a direct threat like the one he issued at Liz Cheney. He talked about training guns or like a firing squad for Liz Cheney. Michelle Obama's threat, he was more vague about it. When I saw people talking about it online, because, you know, Black folk, we laugh at everything to keep from crying or going insane. But they were talking about Trump's threat to Michelle Obama. And they were like, George W. Bush will have none of it. They were like, somewhere George W. Bush is shouting, keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth. You're so fucking dumb, yo. We thought Bush was the absolute worst. And then it was Sarah Palin first. And we were like, holy shit, you actually put her on the ballot to be VP. The lady ain't even read. She could read. She ain't bother reading no papers though. And I'm like, but and you want to be like the second in command to the old man? McCain actually seemed like a decent person. Remember, there was a time, it seems so foreign and far away now, when you could like disagree and like, I don't know, not be like blatantly racist and crazy about it. I will always remember, and this was around the time when things were getting like really frantic and like the racists were coming out the woodwork. Like Sarah Palin stirred up a lot of that shit in conjunction with Trump because he was calling Obama like not a real American and the birther shit and all that. But like, I just remember, was it a town hall, I guess? And someone was saying that, Obama was a Muslim and he was a terrorist and he was this terrible person. And John McCain was like, he's not a Muslim. He's not a terrorist. He's a very decent man. He and I just have different philosophies on how to approach solving issues. I will always respect John McCain for that. I ain't want him to win, but I respect his ass for like, being like, no, decent person. Can you imagine Trump just actually being a decent person? Not even someone saying he is. Like, nobody even tries to pretend that at this point. I saw a video the other day, I guess it was Saturday, and there was a video of Trump performing fellatio on a microphone at one of his rallies. Like, I saw the video before I saw the description. Like, if someone had said, like, Trump is like blowing a microphone, I'd be like, I mean, he would, but he wouldn't. Like, there's got to be some lines the man won't cross. And then, like, but I saw the video first, and I'm like, this is your king. This is who is running for the president of the United States. And as of today, they're talking about the election is neck and neck. And I'm just like, how? It will never make sense. No matter who is elected our president over the next, it won't be tomorrow, over the next week, couple weeks, however long it's going to take to make a determination. History will look back at this moment and just be like, what the fuck? You know how like we look back at like Nazi Germany and be like, yo, like, how could they all be so stupid? How do so many people go along with this bullshit? That's us. We won't make it through Trump. The empire will fall, but there will still be people left alive to tell the story. But 50 years from now, what's remaining of America, those people who survived, the children of those people will look back and be like, what the fuck were they thinking? The rest of the world is looking at us like that right now. Like, please don't fuck this up. This will never make sense. Never. You elected a reality star? Even if he doesn't win tomorrow or the next couple weeks, like that he got this close again. After we already went through 4 years of his bullshit, like how we're here again, just will forever baffled. One of the reasons I talk about shit like this, and knowing that the listenership to this podcast is well read and very diverse and is very well informed about some of the issues that I speak on, sometimes I just talk about it just so there's a record of it. The Biden thing, when everyone was calling for him to pull out the race, and he was like, no, I'm your president. I'm not pulling out the race. Like literally, he said, like, unless Jesus tells me to. And then like a week later, he pulled out the race. And then it went from members of his own party publicly saying that he was, unfit and feeble and too old and losing his mind and just experiencing early stage, I don't know, dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever people were saying at the time. It just literally flipped overnight to like, he's a patriot, he's a hero, and thank you, Joe. And, he's doing the best thing for democracy. It was one of the best PR and marketing campaigns I've ever witnessed. I don't know who the architect of that was. It was absolutely fucking brilliant. But just the whiplash of it and just the way people can like spin history. Joe Biden is like this great American patriot who stepped down to save America. Like that version is going to be recorded in history as opposed to like the shit that actually happened. There's been a complete whitewashing of like the way that actually factually played out, which is why I recap the things that I do on here. So there's a record somewhere of like, nah, this shit really actually happened this way, not the way they say it did. Like I lived it. So now we're about to talk about Meg Thee Stallion's documentary. I talked about it on social media. I promised that I would talk about it on here. I thought I was going to be able to do it as a segment, but like I have a lot to say. Like I went through the documentary a second and third time watching and just took bunches and bunches of notes because there was so much covered. But there's no way I can do this in a segment. So it's the rest of today's episode. This is me warning you now that I'm about to do major spoilers. You know how like I go through books and we talk about it page by page and quote by quote and all of that? I'm about to do that with Megan's documentary. So if you have not watched it, which should be rare, the documentary hit #1 on Amazon over the weekend, which means like a whole lot of people just watched this documentary. Much congratulations to Megan and to her director, Neka Onara. I kind of know her. We run in similar circles in New York and LA. We have friends in common. And then there was a period in time, like every time I left the house, I would run into her because she'd be outside and I'd be outside. And she travels a bunch because I was in Bali and I needed a driver and I knew she'd been. And I was like, hey, so she gave me her driver. This was years ago. I want to say like 2018, I think was the first time I went to Bali. And then I was back last year and I used the same driver. So Naka is the gift that keeps on giving in more ways than one. Like this documentary, which I think is going to fuck around and win an Emmy. It won't be her first. She's also got an Emmy for, she produced, did she direct? Lizzo's show. Lizzo had a reality show. She got an Emmy for that. She's done a bunch of documentaries. I'm looking at her bio right now. She's known for her film, The Same Difference. I think this was her first documentary, a documentary about internalized homophobia within the Black lesbian community. That film was nominated for a GLAAD Award. It says her credits include field producer of the Netflix original docuseries First and Last about inmates' intake and release from the prison system, and My House, a documentary series about the Black queer Vogue scene for Viceland. I follow her on Instagram. I was like, I remember some of this stuff. This bio is not up to date because it doesn't mention the Lizzo series, but she 100%, I know for certain, has an Emmy for the Lizzo series. Anyway, I say all that to say congratulations. And we about to get into this Megan documentary. And this is, again, I'm telling you, spoiler alert. If you do not want to hear spoilers, please cut the podcast off now. We're not talking about nothing else after Meg. This entire episode, the rest of the episode is about Meg Thee Stallion's documentary, in her words, that just hit #1 on Amazon. So like to hear it? Here we go. I know none of you watch porn, but just in case you have any friends that do, help me pass along this important PSA. Incognito mode does not make you incognito. Check the fine print. All your late night activities or early morning, however you like to watch, or your friend, are still 100% available to a ton of third parties, unless you use ExpressVPN. Without ExpressVPN, your internet service provider, your mobile network provider, and the admins of your Wi Fi network, your school, boss, your parents can still see every website you visit, even in incognito mode. ExpressVPN will hide your IP address, making it extremely difficult for third parties to track your online activity. It's also easy to use. Just fire up the app and click one button to get protected. And ExpressVPN works on all devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and more, so you can stay private on the go. I use ExpressVPN so I can watch my American shows when I'm abroad or watch my international shows when I'm back in America. But whatever you intend to use ExpressVPN for, protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/ratchet. That's expressvpn.com/ratchet. And you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/ratchet. I haven't cried this bad about a documentary since Celine Dion. And if you haven't seen that documentary, absolute must see. There's a lot of overlap in these documentaries. Celine's documentary isn't so much about mental health, but she's had to overcome. So that's a theme that also comes up in Meg Thee Stallion's documentary. One of the big differences between Celine and Megan is the obvious. There's, age. Celine's documentary, I worried about Celine's health because, like, she's going through something and you don't want to see someone suffer. Celine has a team of doctors and therapists and supports for her health and then also for her family and her life that take good care of her. When she has this medical emergency, the doctors come running. They are very compassionate. They tell her what's going on every step of the way. We're doing this, we're doing that. 10 more minutes and it's going to kick in. It's okay. We're right here. We're right here. They're very respectful. They're very helpful. She got people around her that care about her. So it's very sad what's happening to her, but in no way is she just on her own without a support system. Megan, Megan Pete. Because Meg the Stallion, she says, is a character that she creates to protect Megan Pete. Megan, as of like literally today, is 29 years old. For most people, 30 is like the inklings of when you actually start to figure life out. Somewhere around 40 is when it actually clicks. This shit is an enigma. You can't figure it out. Like we all out here just coasting, doing the fucking best we can. Before the age of 30, I made a lost list when I was watching this documentary. When she's a kid, her dad is locked up until she's 7 or 8. He gets out of jail. They have a great relationship. And then when she's around 14, she's at ninth grade, her father has a heart attack, dies. When she's somewhere around 24, her career is already taking off. Her mother is her momager, and she's on it like Usher's mama was when she was managing him, or Brandy's mama was. Like she all up in the mix for everything. And Meg was like, my mom makes all the decisions. Like I perform, but like you can see in the documentary, her mom is like, oh no, you need to enunciate this word. You need to speak from your diaphragm. Like her mom is running the show. And she was doing a great job. Megan's career is taking off. And then her mom calls her one day and she's like, I don't feel right. Like my words aren't coming out right. Like something's not right. I need you to call 911. Mama goes into the hospital. She's giving Meg like a pep talk, focus on your career, don't let nothing deter you. And then her mom starts having seizures, goes into a coma, and that's it. It's somewhere around 23, 24 years old. Meg has to pull the plug on her own mother. The documentary glosses over this because you can't get everything in here. But I want to say like 2 weeks, 2 months after her mother dies, her grandmother dies. So at the age of 23, 24, this girl has no immediate family. Shortly after her mom and grandma died, then her career starts to go crazy. She gets nominated and receives a BET award. She gets a VMA. Her music starts really, really popping. Everything goes crazy. This part is not in the documentary either. She was signed to a label. She's at war with them over money and they won't put out her music for years. That's not in the documentary. I'm going to imagine because Meg's off the label, they resolved the issue. I'm going to guess there's a gag order in place there. Then she gets shot by Tory Lanez. I can say that without saying allegedly because he's found guilty of it last year. The fallout from the shooting, there's I can't even call it a love triangle, a like triangle with Tory Lanez, with Megan, and then her best friend, Kelsey. So Tory Lanez was supposed to be one of her friends. He shoots her. So there's like a betrayal there. At some point, she says she and Tory were together every day. His mother had died, so they had that in common. And so she loses that friendship, the betrayal of like, one of my friends just shot me. She loses the best friend. Meg says the best friend had been around, I think she says since 2013. Kelsey at one point is in the documentary and she talks about, I think it's when Megan is getting her BET award. Kelsey says something like, I remember the first video we uploaded on YouTube. I always knew this moment was coming. So she's been around. She's been the bestie since before any of the fame popped off. She's gone. In the wake of the Tory Lanez shooting, the online bullying is like insane. She has PTSD. They never called it that in the documentary, but it's somebody who has it currently. That shit from Mozambique, when that dude popped up in my room, still got me fucked up. I can't sleep to this day on the ground floor when I travel. The last time I did it was last time I was in South Africa. I didn't even think about it when I booked the room, whether it was like a bi-level building or anything. I checked into my room and I saw it was on the ground floor. And I was like, it's a really safe area. Logically, I understand this. But I laid in the bed trying to go to sleep that night and my heart felt like it was going to pound out of my chest. Like I was like, I'm fucking terrified. I'm absolutely fucking terrified that someone's going to come in this room while I'm asleep. Even with the doors locked, even with me rearranging furniture, like pushing the sofa in front of the bed, spreading out my suitcase and all this other stuff, like setting booby traps, like I'm home alone. I only fell asleep that night because I was exhausted. I only tell you that to say like PTSD, anxiety, blah, blah, blah. Because I have it, I recognize it very quickly when I see it in other people. And Meg says as much at one point. She says, like, because of the online bullying and seeing all these men wishing that she was dead, and they play video clips of this because otherwise people would be like, oh, she's being dramatic. Nobody ever said that. Exhibit A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like, they put the clips in of men saying that they wanted to kill her and that she wished she was dead. And she was like, and I have to go out in front of crowds and perform. She was like, I don't know if somebody's going to shoot me, if somebody's going to attack me. Like, I never know. Like, every time I walk out on stage, I'm like, what could happen? Is it logical? No. But is there an inkling of possibility? Yeah. And because of that inkling, is it magnified in your head? The magnified in your head is kind of what makes it the PTSD and anxiety. Like other people could think that shit and be like, that sounds crazy. And then go out and be fine. And then other people think that shit and be like, is it crazy? Because, you like never, that shit would never happen, except the shit actually happened to you. So it could happen. And now what if it happens again? Fuck. Okay, so she got PTSD from shooting, and she's got anxiety about the upcoming trial. In the midst of this, her house gets broken into. She breaks up with her boyfriend. That's not part of the documentary, but I just remember the timeline in my head of this stuff happening. She has a meltdown and leaves to go to a wellness center for a month to like finally go see a therapist. And then the trial happens. Tory Lanez is found guilty, but then the online bullshit still doesn't end. Like she's literally to this day still living with this shit. If you've seen conversations about the documentary, like even though Tory Lanez has been convicted by quote and unquote a jury of his peers, and not convicted by Megan Thee Stallion, but convicted by the state of California, they're still coming for her like that bitch lied. That bitch lied. That bitch lied. Did she lie about fucking Tory to Gayle King? Yes. That's not in dispute. Did she lie about getting shot? She got bullet fragments in her feet. Who shot her? Did she shoot herself? All of this before the age of 30 and with no support system. She's got a team of people around her. I didn't think for the most part, based on anything that was shown in the documentary, that anyone except one, Lorianne, get her out of there. I know she's a talented choreographer. The gaslighting that she does, if I was Meg's auntie, Lorianne would have to go. I don't care how great your skills are. There's other people. I thought for the most part, like the people around her were good folk, at least based on what was shown in the documentary. Her manager, the big guy, I don't remember his name, starts with the L. Hold on. No, starts with the F. Ferris. He was good for the most part. Ferris, he'd been around for a while. I don't know if he was around when Megan's mom died. No, because Megan's mom was the manager. I don't know where she went and got him from as a manager. I wish someone, and maybe there was no manager, but there were people were around. I wish someone, after her mom died, had the good sense to tell her, have a seat. Because the girl was on stage performing 3 weeks after her mama died. Because Black folks, you got to have a funeral within 7 days. We don't keep the body out long. So like you buried your mama and then 2 weeks later you were on stage performing. What? In whose mind does that make sense? Megan's mama, by Megan's own words, her mama's last directive was go to work. As a grown person and not the person it happened to, I could process this. Your mama didn't mean 3 weeks later. She meant even though I'm going, keep your eye on the prize. She didn't mean go back to work immediately. Like don't grieve and don't process and don't get therapy after I die because you about to be fucked up. But it's like there's no one in her life, no auntie, no, like your mama ain't had no best friend. It was your godmama or just like some besties from wherever that like looked in on you. Like nobody said like you need to come like to my house and sleep in my guest room and I'm just going to keep my good eye on you for a while and make sure you all right. Because just the idea to think that it makes sense to go perform 3 weeks after your mama died. Just what? Off. I don't know if Ferris was around then, but there were people around. Like somebody. There was no adult in the room that was like, hey, this isn't a good idea. Like you need to sit down, sis. I love you. I did appreciate that later in the documentary when Meg it's right after the Gayle King interview. She's in the bed and she's having a meltdown because she knows she lied about the Tory thing. And then she's mad that Gayle even asked her whether she had sex with him or not. But Ferris tries to give her, I thought, responsible advice. And he was like, you just got to get through it. Like what's done is done. And heavy is the head that carries the crown, which is an old quote. I think it goes back to Shakespeare. I picked it up from Prop Joe on The Wire. He doesn't dismiss her feelings, at least. And I thought that was decent. There's also another scene. I think she's in the middle of tour. She's revving up. SNL is on the line. Something with Forbes is on the line. She's got a bunch of stuff, but it's one of the guys and he's presenting her with, you're invited to this and they're asking for this and people want you to do this and go there and do this. And Meg was like, it's so much and blah, blah, blah. And he just says, you don't have to do any of this shit. And he's like, my job is to present you with the opportunities. And he was like, here are the things that are actually confirmed that you actually have to do. He's like the Forbes. And she was like, I want to do that. He was like SNL. And she's like, I got to do that. He was like, you don't really have any other obligations and for like a month out until we go. I think he said Australia. I appreciated that he didn't do a hard press on her when she's sitting there saying she feels overwhelmed, which she says like 50 million times throughout this documentary. I made a list, and this is not even like a complete list, but she says, this is the very beginning of the documentary. One of the first things she says, I feel like I'm always on the verge of a breakdown. I feel like there's always some kind of target on me. I just be feeling like shit right now. Somebody asked her, they said, you good? She says, no. She's not even pretending. Up until literally, I think her house got broken into, and then Drake attacks her online, and then she just spirals, and she's like, fuck everything. She cancels Australia, and she runs off to therapy. But the entire documentary, I want to say for like the first hour, maybe 15 minutes before she finally goes to therapy, at one point I was just like, every time she would say something, I was just like, therapist, therapist, therapy. Why is no one calling a therapist? Someone call a fucking therapist. I know a therapist can't replace a mama, but like, she ain't got a mama right now. The therapist's gonna be the next closest thing you could get. I want to go get that girl so bad. So bad. I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing most days. I be out here existing off like vibes, feelings, and tequila. I'm trying to figure it out like everybody else. I got just enough figured out to know when to sit down, when to stop drinking, and when to go to therapy. Those three things can solve a whole lot of fucking problems in life. We've all hit the point where we realized it was time to make serious money moves. Take control of your finances by using a Chime checking account with features like no maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, or getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Learn more at chime.com/ratchet. I love that Chime is a financial institution with a sense of community. If you're low on finances, get spotted on debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. Chime offers no monthly fees or maintenance fees. And my favorite part, how easy they make it to access your money with over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. Make your fall finances a little greener by working towards your financial goals with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/ratchet. That's chime.com/ratchet. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank North America or Stride Bank North America. Members FDIC. Spot me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Boosts are available to eligible Chime members enrolled in Spot Me and are subject to the monthly limits. Terms and conditions apply. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details. Let's actually get into what happens in the documentary. So act one of this, it's probably like 4 or 5 minutes into the documentary. It's technically after her graduation, which the way it's presented in the documentary, oh my God, I'm about to cry just talking about it. It's a very celebratory occasion. Obviously, like she's graduating from college. Her hairstylist is with her, and he's trying to get the curls right, which I read very much as an act of love. And maybe he saw in real time the same thing that, we watching the documentary are seeing, that like she's graduating from college and there's like no family there. Her boyfriend at the time, Party, he was there. So she does have support in that form. But she's graduating from college, which is like this major milestone. Which most people, you graduate from college and like the whole fam shows up. Like, but relatives you ain't seen in years, like this is very much like a big family celebration. Like even if you ain't the first person in your family to graduate, like it's just a big deal to graduate from college. And she's getting ready, and it's just her and her hairstylist. Oh my God, I'm tearing up just talking about it. And then like they call her name and she goes and she walks across stage, and it's people, random people in the audience, fans that are celebrating her. Then there's a celebration backstage, and there's a cake. On the cake is a picture of Megan and her mama, and the words, "Mama, I made it," but her mama not there. And her daddy ain't there. And ain't no grandparents there. Like no aunts and uncles or cousins. Like nobody's identified as like family while she's there. And then she's celebrating backstage. And the first thing that popped in my head, it's not PC, and I don't mean to call folks out their name, but I'm just saying it. It's like, this is what popped in my head. That Tommy Davidson line, like, who are these niggas? And the folks in the room genuinely seem to be celebrating. They look like upstanding, good people. Nobody did anything wrong. I'm not using the N word in the way that I usually use it on this podcast. I'm just like, but who are these people? Like, no one's even important enough in the documentary to be identified as like Aunt so and so or cousin so and so or Meg's godmother or her professor or dean of the college or anything. It's just like all these people, and like there's champagne and there's cake and like there's this big crowd of people, and I'm like, but who are they? Her entourage? Like, where's the girl's family? She don't got none. It's so sad. So after the graduation is when we get into act one. And we learn, for those people, I didn't know this about Megan. Like, I follow her online, but I don't think I've ever actually sat down and like read an article about her. So some of these details are very new to me. Hardcore fans might have known some of this stuff. Her mom was an aspiring rapper. Megan talks about how curvy her mom was. And then she describes her mom as, quote, the baddest bitch, which I only mention because later in this documentary, Megan is talking about the interview with Gayle King. And she says something like, I didn't know that bitch was going to ask me that question. And in the clip circulating about the documentary on the day that it dropped, there was a big hullabaloo. Like, all the headlines were like, Meg the Stallion calls Gayle King a bitch. And then Gayle actually responds to it and she says, yes, I saw it. And she uses it as an anchor to actually talk about something else, like regarding the election. But Gayle really doesn't have any reaction to it. She just acknowledges that she's heard about it. I feel like that's totally taken out of context. Technically, when speaking about Gayle King, she does refer to her as a bitch. But throughout the documentary, like, she's calling her mama the baddest bitch. She refers to herself at some point as a bitch. She's celebrating some acknowledgement. Maybe it was like WAP, doing the numbers that it did. And she's telling people about it. And she was like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, bitch. But she almost uses it like, you heard? She just says bitch a lot. When she says it about Gayle King, she's not like, oh, that dirty bitch. I can't believe she did me like that, blah, blah, blah. She's literally referring to Gayle King in the same way that she refers to her mom. And I was really mad that, like, out of all the things that are discussed in this documentary, like all the things that come up, that the part about Gayle King is what got everyone talking. Like, there was so much more to this documentary. Like, her reaction when she first hears the Tory Lanez verdict, like, that wasn't the most compelling part of this documentary. Like, that should have been the clip that was circulating everywhere. Let's see, what else is in this backstory? Her dad, we talked about him already, how he was locked up till she was 7 or 8. And then he dies when she's in the 9th grade. And she says that she and her mom never really talked about her dad's death. And she knew her mom was messed up about it. And she says that she tried to be strong for her mom. And I mention this specifically because I think this is probably the start of Megan's grief that doesn't get addressed. Like, your whole daddy died, who you were close to. Like, she was like, me and my dad were always together. She talks about wisdom imparted to her. Everyone that grin ain't your friend. That comes up a couple times in the documentary, especially is related to Tory Lanez. But like, your whole daddy died. And then you and your mama don't talk about it. And at 14, you feel like you got to be strong. You're a child. But for whatever reason, which, I'm a Black woman. I totally understand all of that. We are taught to be strong and then also blamed for being strong. But like, that's the role that she took on at 14. And from what I can tell, based on this documentary, she doesn't really process any of the shit that happened to her, at least with professional help, until somewhere around maybe 27, 28. When was she on SNL? Like a year or two ago. So yeah, 27, 28. She'd been carrying the death of her daddy and then everything that happened after that. And it just compounded all these years. It's notable that it's around this time, like, she started rapping and she takes on this persona of Meg the Stallion to pretend to be stronger than she actually feels. Meg shares with her mom that she's been rapping and that she's been uploading videos on YouTube. Her mom is very unfazed by the Meg the Stallion persona. I'm going to give her mama anywhere from like 3 to 5 years older than me, which means her mom was raised on about the same shit I was. So like, yes, there's like gospel music and Luther Vandross and Celine Dion. Okay. There's also like Queen Latifah and Moni Love and Salt and Pepper and MC Light and then JJ Fad, Supersonic. And then eventually Little Kim and Foxy Brown. It makes sense to me because I disassociate this way. I even had a t-shirt at one point. Feminist lips and ratchet hips. I am a total feminist. But I also like and can recite to this day the entirety of Little Kim's Hardcore. It is one of my favorite albums. And I don't actually see that as any contradiction. In fact, the same way that Meg speaks about her music, which can be very lewd and very sexual, when Meg is doing interviews, she was like, no, I think my music is empowering women. She was like, yes, I want them to love their bodies. I want them to embrace their sexuality. She was like, men talk about doing all sorts of shit to women, like drugging them, raping them, running trains on them. And she was like, and just when I say, I like my body, I like to have sex, I like to have pleasure, I expect pleasure, I want to be in control of my body and what happens to it. When I talk about having sex with a man in the same ways that men talk about having sex with women, suddenly it's a goddamn problem. So it actually makes sense to me when Meg goes to her mom and says, okay, this is what I want to do and this is how I want to do it. And like, I want to be this like hot girl who says like this crazy shit and twerks all the time. Her mama pulls out a camera and was like, all right, well, if you're going to twerk, shit, twerk harder than that. Her mom is sitting in the studio and Meg is talking about all sorts of crazy shit. And her mom is in here talking about like, you got to say it from your diaphragm. You got to breathe right. Like you're not pronouncing the word right. You're saying feel when you need to say feel. You enunciate. You gonna be a lewd rapping lady? Be the best lewd rapping lady there ever was. You competing with some of the best. But Meg's mom runs everything. Meg says as much. She was like, my mom makes all the decisions. Like she tells me what to do and I do it. Like that's how it goes. I described earlier, like the passing of her mother, like abruptly, like she's fine one day, and then a few days later, she's in a coma and essentially brain dead. And Meg is charged with like pulling the plug on her own mama at like 23, 24 years old. I'm officially middle aged. I can't imagine. I was on Facebook and one of my friends if she's not 50, she's turning 50 this year. And she was talking about like her mom died when she was well over 40. And she was like, obviously I'm a grown woman. She's like, I had a child and family of my own. But she was like, I spent the next 5 years like in a complete blur. She was like, don't ask me about anything that happened in the 5 years after my mom died. Like, I don't remember. 3 weeks later, Megan is back on stage performing. There's video of the performance, and you can just look at her and see she ain't right. Like, it's like the light went out. It's like she's there, but there's nobody inside there. Like it's going through the motions, which, she says much later, like that's exactly what it is. But I'm like, she looked like it, which is why I was like, nobody on the team, like nobody. I know it's not the job of the hairstylist or the makeup artist or the wardrobe or the driver or, any of those people. Like, I know it's not their job, but I was like, what? Nobody said like, hey girl, hey, why don't you just sit down for a minute? Why don't you come stay by me? And just, we'll hang out. Kelsey, she's the bestie. I know it's not her job. And she's the same age as Meg. Like she don't really know no more about the world than Meg does, but it's just like nobody. And also I think a testament to Meg's talent and strength and God's good graces and ancestors, praying grandmothers, praying mothers, angels. Clearly that girl got good ancestors. That even in the midst of all of this grief, like your daddy dying and then your mama dying and then your grandma dying, like literally 2 weeks, 2 months later, and then being at war with your record label while all of this is going on, that she's still been able to accomplish all that she has. Like she is a bona fide global superstar, which I don't think I realized until I was watching this documentary. Like I know she was big, and I know like I spent the whole summer trying to like chase her around in different cities. I never did. That's not true. I saw her perform twice at the BET Awards. I want to say she opened the show and then she performed with Glorilla. I was in Chicago for NABJ. It was the same time, I think, as Lollapalooza. She was literally performing across the street. I had dinner with a friend and I didn't want to cancel it because we've been trying to meet up for a while. And then she was at Broccoli City in DC. I love Meg Thee Stallion, but they wanted $800 for a ticket. And I was like, I'm not paying $800 to see Meg. I'm sorry. I'm not. I need just a Meg show. I don't need like a whole like concert. I've talked to a lot of amazing people on this podcast, but if you're like me, you want to go deeper. So where can you learn from the most remarkable people? That's Masterclass. This year, learn from the best to become your best with Masterclass. Don't just talk about improving. Masterclass actually helps you do it. Masterclass offers over 180 world-class instructors. So whether you want to master negotiation with Chris Voss or think like a boss with Martha Stewart, Masterclass has you covered. With Masterclass, you get unlimited access to intimate one-on-one classes with the world's best. There are over 200 classes to pick from, with new classes added every month, like that Martha Stewart class that I just mentioned. I just watched her documentary. I love Martha. Masterclass gives you an advanced version of how to be a boss like Martha. With Masterclass, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. And right now, our listeners will get an additional 15% off an annual membership at masterclass.com/ratchet. Get 15% off right now at masterclass.com/ratchet. Masterclass.com/ratchet. After her mother died, she said she lost her confidence. Makes sense. She said she expected someone to step up and say, I'm going to run this for you, or do this, or don't do that. And nobody came. Nobody did that. So she had to figure out everything on her own. Everything that her mother was doing, she had to do. And she says that's when her heavy drinking began. This is also the same time where her career starts to blow up. She gets nominated for a BET award. She gets that award. She gets nominated for a VMA. She gets a VMA. And the only person that she has in her corner at the time is the bestie Kelsey. And she says at this time, like, she's drinking too much and she's hanging around all the wrong people. One of them being Tory Lanez, industry colleague. She met him at the Rock Nation brunch, and she says they clicked because his mom passed too. I mentioned that earlier. The doc doesn't go into great detail about their friendship. It just notes that, they both have mothers who passed away. He was an industry colleague, and that they were together all the damn time. And then it gets to the night of the shooting. And it doesn't give all the details that we were privy to. Like, if you lived through it, the documentary just talks about like what happened in the car. It doesn't talk about what led up to the shooting. It doesn't mention they were at a party at Kylie Jenner's house. Tory was flirting with Kylie Jenner. Meg got upset. I think this is Kelsey's version of the story. Meg got upset. And then in the car, as they were leaving, Tory Lanez has the car. It's his driver that's taking everybody home. I think the first drop off was Meg. Kelsey was probably staying with her. So Tory Lanez and his driver are dropping the girls off at the house, and everyone's arguing. And the documentary doesn't say what the argument is about. We know what Kelsey testified to in court was she had a situation, not a relationship, with Tory. And she says when she and Meg met Tory at the Rock Nation brunch, Meg is the one who was like, oh, you should connect with him. Like, he's good folks or whatever. And so she was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So she and Tory started up doing something. And then as everyone is arguing in the car, Kelsey says that's when she realized that there was something going on between Meg and Corey. Essentially, she realized that her friend was fucking the same dude she was. Meg acknowledges there's an argument. She never says what it is about. She says she was leaving this party. She was drunk as shit. She was like, I'm sitting in this car. All I got on is a bathing suit. She had on technically more than a bathing suit. You can see there's video footage after the shooting. It's in a residential neighborhood. Everybody calls the police. Tons of police shows up. A helicopter shows up. There's pictures overhead where you can see Megan limping around on one foot, and you can see like the streams of blood that she's leaving behind. She has on some sort of covering, a sheer cover up, but a cover up nonetheless. So she's not just in a bathing suit, but still. I just only make that point because in the documentary, they used anime to show like the scene of the shooting, and she gets out of the car. All she has on is a thong bikini. It's just something I noticed, which is an interesting choice. I wonder why it was made. I just think about shit like that. She said they were arguing in the car. She doesn't remember what all she was saying, but she was like, she feels like Tory was upset because, he felt emasculated because a woman was talking crazy to him. She said she got out the car once and was like, fuck it, I'm just going to walk home, which is some real drunk shit. And she says Tory came out the car and was like, yo, we're almost to your house. Let's get back in the car, get back in the car. So she gets back in the car. They keep on arguing. She says she gets out the car again and she's like, fuck this. And then she says Tory gets out the car. He has a gun and he yells, dance, bitch, and then fires the gun. It doesn't say in the documentary how many times. I want to say he fired the gun 5 times. Is that accurate? Hold on. Okay, yeah, just looked it up. He fired the gun at her 5 times. In the anime and the documentary, they just show the gun go off once, but it's 5 times. That's an interesting choice. I wonder why they didn't show all five. So the gun goes off. They're in the Hollywood Hills. A swarm of police show up, and Megan says that she's terrified that the situation is going to escalate. She says it's in the middle of George Floyd, and she's scared that the police are going to show up. They're going to see these 4 Black folks, which somebody has a gun in the middle of the Hollywood Hills, and she's afraid somebody's going to get shot, particularly Tory, which I was like, he just shot you. He didn't give a fuck about shooting you. Why you give a fuck about him getting shot? It's partly drunk logic, but it's also that weird logic that's like almost ingrained in Black women not to bring extra drama to Black men, because the idea is like, oh, they have it so hard and there's so much that is against them, and like, police be shooting them down left and right, and so you don't want to say something that results in them getting shot. If y'all just got into an argument and maybe he pushed you, I can see like you being like, you know what? It wasn't like he hit me in the face. The police come in and I don't want him dead. A push doesn't warrant putting him in a situation where he could get shot. But it's like that kind of logic, like I almost understand, because I'm also like, well, the nigga shouldn't have put his hands on you at all. Like he brought all of this on himself. Like if he hadn't pushed you, then like the police wouldn't have been called. Like this isn't a you problem. This is a him problem. Like he started this shit. She feels that she has to protect Tory Lanez. I have done something similar to protect the Black man to my own detriment. If you remember, many, many, many years ago, I wrote a book called A Bell in Brooklyn. And the second chapter of the book, I wrote in brutal detail. I can't read that chapter. Going back and read A Bell in Brooklyn a couple times, I always skip chapter 2. I wrote about this guy who was my mentor who sexually assaulted me. I moved to New York on like a Sunday, and the following weekend, like I go out with him to like celebrate, and the motherfucker tries to assault me. Does assault me. It wasn't penis penetration, but it was assault nonetheless. And I had to call a friend in the middle of the night to come pick me up, a guy. And the guy who came to get me was beating the shit out of him. And I remember for whatever reason, I got out the car and stopped him from beating him. He was reaching in his trunk to get a golf club that he was going to beat the shit out of him with. And I realized what he was doing. And I got out the car and stopped him from beating him with a golf club. And I've questioned myself about that like 50 million times over the years. I'm like, this nigga just assaulted you and you stopped someone for trying to kill him. Partially it's because I didn't want the friend that I called to get in trouble for like his own version of assault. But it's like that guy thought I was worth beating somebody's ass over. This is why the documentary got me. I didn't think I was worth somebody beating somebody's ass over. That's why it sat with me all these years, because I'm just like, girl. Have you seen this challenge online? It's called the Breaking My Heart Challenge. And people are posting pictures of their parents from back in the day. And they're like, oh, my mom used to break hearts back in the day. So I wanted to make one of those. So I'm digging through this box of pictures and I'm like, is this really like the best way to organize the family photos in giant boxes in the basement? I found a solution from our friends at Legacybox. You're going to love Legacybox. Every day, your home movies and photos are slowly fading away. They fade away in closets, or worse, break down because of the dampness of your garage or heat in your attic or wherever you're storing your photos. Well, right now, you can easily access those memories and protect them forever for 50% off with code RATCHET. Legacybox is easy. Load Legacybox with your old tapes, film, and pictures and send it back. You'll get it back on a thumb drive or cloud, ready to watch and easy to share. It's so simple. It's like magic. Our family photos, I'm talking about my baby pictures, all my parents' stuff, and my grandparents' stuff. They were all stored in boxes in the basement. The idea of something happening to all that history, oh my God. I'm so glad I found Legacybox to keep my family's history safe. For a limited time only, you can visit legacybox.com/ratchet and save 50%. That's legacybox.com/ratchet to shop 50% off. This sale won't last long. Legacybox.com/ratchet. So she lies to protect Tory. The police are asking, like, what happened to you? Why are your feet bleeding? Like, we can see the blood. Like, what's going on? She doesn't want to say that Tory shot her. She gets to the hospital. They run x-rays on her feet. The doctor comes in and he's like, I can see the bullet fragment. Where did the bullets come from? She still doesn't want to say anything. Couple things here. The documentary shows the x-rays where you can see the bullet fragments in her feet. People are still online to this day. I mean, like as of yesterday when I was reading comments, people are still online saying she didn't get shot. She didn't get shot. She's making that shit up. She did that shit for attention. She stepped on glass like she originally said she didn't get shot. Like the doctor who took the bullet fragments out of her feet, the one that also did the x-rays, was like, hey, I am a doctor. There are bullet fragments in her feet, and I had to remove the bullet fragments from her feet. And in fact, there are still bullet fragments in her feet. Just for everyone, like there was absolutely a shooting. She absolutely did get shot in the feet. This is not a question. Like this is a fact. And people are still like, nope, she didn't get shot. She absolutely didn't get shot. Like if she got shot, then how is she performing like so soon after? Megan seems to throw herself into her work as a distraction from all the crazy shit that's going on in her life. Like that's something that keeps coming up over and over and over again. Like your mother dies and you go to work 3 weeks later. Like you get shot in the feet and then 6 weeks later, like you show up with bandages all over your feet and you're like, yeah, okay, I'm ready to do choreography. Girl, what? I can see if you like got shot in the arm and you didn't really need your arm in order to do the choreography. Like it'd been 6 weeks, the arm was mostly healed. You don't really need to move the arm around all that much. Like you can just wrap it up and it'll be okay. Nigga, you got shot in your feet and now you're trying to dance? Meg, niece. And everyone seems perfectly okay with that. Lorianne is the choreographer. Like she gets there with her feet all wrapped up and they're just like, okay, well, you got to walk up these stairs to get to the stage. And nobody had the good sense to say, like, do you think you should be dancing right now? You don't think maybe you should wait until you don't need your feet wrapped up to dance, to make sure like nothing happens to your feet? Like they already fucked up. Like you think dancing on your fucked up feet gonna make them any better? Nobody says anything. It's just like here, they don't even help her up the stairs. And she throws herself back into work because she's like, I'm not gonna let this situation derail me. Like I'm just gonna push through. Like I'm gonna do the work. Like I'm gonna focus. I'm gonna do what my mama said. I'm gonna do the work. And then people turn around and use that, your resilience essentially, against you as like evidence that whatever happened to you, if something even happened to you, it couldn't have been that bad because you went back to work. You all right? What you got this man in court for? It just, ugh. WAP drops. I made t-shirts around that time that said, don't waste your WAP. It was me and Kalila from Messing a Bottle. But WAP comes out. WAP is huge. I remember writing about the backlash to WAP when it happened. All these men were acting like this was the most disgraceful song they had ever heard. Snoop was on, and they put him in the documentary too. Because you could say people said something, but sometimes you just need to see the words coming out of somebody's mouth. And it was like, nigga, you said this shit. Snoop was in the documentary talking about like a woman's, what he said, like a woman's sacred space, like it should only be shared with their private person, or it should only be shared in private, or with somebody that matters to them or something like that. And I'm like, nigga, you got a whole album called Doggy Style. You have a female dog, a cartoon of a female dog with her ass up, sticking out of a doghouse. This is the cover of your debut album. And you want to talk to somebody about like, private spaces, things that should be reserved. Sir, you made porn at one point. Yes. Snoop, of all people, Joe Budden, academics, all these men across the internet having fucking meltdowns because women are talking about the pride they have in their pussy. I grew up on Too Short and Two Live Crew. I remember C. Dolores Tucker was having a fit about the lyrics, and people acted like she was crazy. It's grown folks' music. Grown people, if they want to make lewd and disgusting music, that is their constitutional right. That Two Live Crew thing went all the way to the Supreme Court. It was a fundamental constitutional right of artists to say lewd, trifling, nasty, filthy shit if that's what they should so want to say. And now Megan Cardi, nobody's talking about raping, nobody's talking about drugging, nobody's talking about doing illegal shit. They just talking about like, I got some good ass pussy. That's it. And this is how I move it. This is how I work it. This is how I want it to be pleased and satisfied. Men have a fucking meltdown. You talk about day in, day out, especially the rappers. about things y'all want to do to women. You talk day in and day out about all the pussy you had, all the women you done knocked down, all the quote unquote bodies, like you done murdered somebody. So violent. And these two women want to talk about how good and enjoyable sex with them is and how much pleasure they expect when they have sex with someone else. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. The state of California says it's going to press charges against Tory Lanez. Megan said up until that point, there was the backlash about WAP, but there hadn't been too much backlash about the shooting. They don't talk about this exact timeline in the documentary because it was recent. Like I remember it like yesterday. That's what it feels like. Meg never publicly says Tory shot her. She's going with the I stepped on glass defense. And then the state of California decides to press charges. Tory is now adamantly denying that what happened, no allegedly, because he's been found guilty in a court of law. Tory denies that he shot her. And he's on the internet talking about like the truth will come to light. And this is important because it comes up again with the Gayle King thing. He tweets this. He says, quote, good dick had me fucking two best friends and I got caught. So he's putting the business out there. Like Megan is trying to protect you. And now you're online talking about you fucked her, which is true. But it's like, okay, like, so she kept your secret that like you shot her, which is significantly more important because your ass could end up in jail, did end up in jail for 10 years, no less, over this shit. But like, she kept your secret, but you didn't feel like you should keep hers? No? Okay. So he's denying that he shot Megan. And then men and women on the internet start turning against Megan, saying that she's a liar, like just saying all sorts of like crazy shit about her. And Megan's just like whiplash because she's like, I protected you. I lied to the police because I didn't want anything to happen to you. And now you've sicked the whole fucking internet on me? And did. But also goes further. I didn't know this part. She says at one point she was on live doing whatever, and she said Tory texted her, which I was like, you ain't block his number? But she says Tory texted her and was like, you look sad on live. And she was like, nigga, what? You shot me. She doesn't say it at the time, but like I have PTSD and anxiety from being fucking shot. And like I can't trust anybody now. Like you were supposed to be my friend. I've been rethinking all the time we spent together, how I never saw signs that you were capable of fucking shooting me. Like there's that. And then you're the cause of me looking sad on live between the shooting and then what seems like the whole goddamn internet coming from my throat. The level of gaslighting for that shit. You look sad. Like, nigga, you are the cause. What? And she also says, and there's video. I'd never seen the video before. Tory Lanez did some song, and in the video, he's at a butcher shop, and there are horse legs, and he's chopping up a horse leg, which Meg the stallion, horse. And then just in case you don't make the full connection between the imagery, just so there's like no question whatsoever, there's like a whiteboard in the back, and it has something like either MTS or HGS, hot girl shit, hot girl summer, Meg the Stallion. But just it's something that makes it very, very clear that like these horse legs belong to Meg. Like no sense of metaphor. Like just so we're clear, like I am pretending to chop up Meg the Stallion. This is what you do for someone who tried to protect you. Nigga. And then it seems like every man in the industry suddenly wants to come to Tory Lanez's defense. It's academics. It's Joe Budden. We talked about Drake before. It's also, hold on, because I made a list. It's LeBron James. I'm going to come back to that in 2 seconds. It's Chris Brown. He's saying free Tory. Meek Mills, the baby. He just jumps out of nowhere and starts saying that he fucked Megan. Did he? Didn't he? I don't know, nor do I care. Also, like, Megan, why are you fucking all these like D-class dudes? Like, do you see you? She don't. She says constantly throughout the documentary how she lost her confidence when her mother died. She further lost her confidence when his motherfucker shoots her. No, she doesn't see her worth. Diddy comes out. He says Tory Lanez is one of his favorite artists. Just for clarity, Joe Budden has been accused of assaulting women. I don't remember all the details, but it's happened more than once. Diddy, I don't need to go through the details because he's got 50 million lawsuits. We've read a bunch of them on here. Academics, a woman accused him and some friends, I believe, of assaulting her at his house, either by the pool or the jacuzzi. That's an ongoing story. Meek, I don't know that Meek's been accused of sexual assault. Not anything pops in my head off the top, but he's like known as the village idiot. Chris Brown, there's a documentary on Chris Brown. I haven't seen it, but I think it came out last month about what a fucking monster he is between the sexual assault and the physical abuse. LeBron James, to my knowledge, doesn't have any bullshit on him. There's been talk of rumors for infidelity, but to me, that's an in-house issue. Whatever's alleged, it's consenting adults, even if one is married. I don't like it, but it's not criminal shit. I ask, like, why would somebody like LeBron James jump in the middle of this shit? Like, what song does Tory Lanez have that is so compelling that you need to jump on Instagram and post about how much you love his music? I, to this day, cannot name you a Tory Lanez song. What song did he make that was so compelling that LeBron James was like, I feel like I need to comment on this publicly and just like jump into this fray? Like, what virtue signaling are you doing, and to who? To want like all of your millions of followers to know that you enjoy Tory Lanez music while he's being accused of shooting a woman? Like, did he make the remix to Ignition? Was it Songs in the Key of Life? Was it something from the Quincy Jones catalog? Was it Usher's Confessions? Like, what fucking Tory Lanez song was so great that LeBron James had to mention it? I think I've told you about my theory about this before, about how quote unquote good men need bad men in order to be good men. In order to be considered good, it has to be contrasted with something. In order to be like, to meet the tenets of, what a good man is, like you're a provider, you're a protector. Okay, protect from who? It's other men. So in order to be a good man protector, you have to protect women from other men, which means you need bad men in order to be a protector. It's kind of like the Batman needs a Joker. Who are you saving Gotham from if there's no one trying to destroy Gotham? For order for you to be a hero, there needs to be a villain, which kind of means all you motherfuckers are villains. That theory is really fucking scary when you think about it. That's another one I really want to be wrong about, but I know that I'm not.
Welcome to Monet Talks with me, your girl Monet Exchange, a weekly podcast where the only thing hotter than the tea is our topics, darling. Every single Thursday, we'll be bringing you candid interviews, fun segments, and games featuring a dazzling array of guests, including fellow queens, other celebrities, pop culture icons, friends, and maybe even an ex-boyfriend or four.
You want to hear something horrible?
Tell me.
I was outed.
Outed?
Yeah.
Say their name.
I think I found sobriety through my fans.
That's beautiful, bitch.
I love those little whores.
I'm normally not this nasty.
I bring it out of everyone. That's the tea. To watch the podcast in studio, see exclusive content, and get a glimpse of what goes on behind the scenes, head over to youtube.com/@MonetExchangeOfficial and tell all your friends you can listen to Monet Talks completely free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. Period.
So the shooting happens. Meg starts getting dragged online. And there's a whole segment of this documentary where she talks about her best friend, Kelsey, is not speaking up. She's like, there's 4 people in the car. Nobody can find the driver/bodyguard, Tori's driver/bodyguard. So now there's only 3 people left to speak. Megan says, he shot me. Tori says, no, I didn't. And Kelsey was in the car and Kelsey's not saying shit. And Megan is really, really upset. And she was like, this man is lying, saying he didn't shoot me. Why is my best friend not speaking up to protect me, to end any of this speculation? Like, you were in the car. Like, you could speak up today and say, yes, I saw Tori shoot Meg, and end all of this right now. Like, I'm being tortured. I'm being bullied. Why won't you help me? Like, who does that? She's like, you knew my mama. We've been friends since before I even got started. We've been together every day since my mama died. Why won't you help me? Because you was fucking the same dude she was fucking, and she feels betrayed. This is very obvious to me. I don't know what I would do if I was in this circumstance, but I'm just like, niece. This is when the 20-something shit comes into play. Kelsey's version of events. We went to Rock Nation brunch. We met this dude. You encouraged me to connect with him, and I did. And I was enjoying my connection with him. Kelsey says she got sick, so she was out of pocket for a minute. And she says during that time, Meg and Tori started fucking. And she had no idea until everybody's in the car that night arguing. Meg feels betrayed that Kelsey is not speaking up. And she's so deep into her, like, you've betrayed me, you betrayed me, you betrayed me. She's completely overlooking the way and that her best friend also feels betrayed. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying Kelsey feels betrayed. She said as much. Kelsey's perspective. We've been friends since before you popped off. Your mama passed away and I stepped in to be your assistant, to be your full-time best friend, to pick up your emotional labor, to whatever mess that you got going on. I'm standing in the gap right now and I'm trying to be here for you while the world is getting crazier and crazier and you're blowing up. I'm trying to be some sort of help to you, some sort of assistant to you, some sort of anchor to you to keep you from spinning out and to be present for you while you're grieving the death of your mama. I've been here for you for your whole fucking run. I wasn't here with you for the money. I was your friend before any of this started. I came through for you. I did for you. I stood by you, literally and figuratively. And then you went and started fucking the same dude I was fucking. You got access to all these men in the industry. You got access to all these fucking groupies that want to get with you. But the one dude you wanted was the dude I was fucking. I would feel betrayed. Now, there are some people that say that, like, okay, so that's like a minor thing and this is like a big thing. Kelsey, she did the thing. We talk about like the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. Kelsey shut the fuck up for the most part. She won't confirm or deny one way or another. Now, there are people who be like, well, she got shot and doesn't that trump? Like, shouldn't she say something like the girl got shot? There is a group of people, a lot of them are cancers, who would say like, but did she die? I'm not saying that this is what I would do. I'm saying I understand how Kelsey could be like, you know what? Betrayal matches betrayal. I'm not going to throw you under the bus, but I'm not going to pick the bitch up off you either. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying I understand how it happened. And I think Meg is being a little willfully naive. Again, it's one of those points where you need somebody who's a little older with a little more perspective to step in and be like, hey, girl, hey, girl, hey, girl, hey. What you did was dead ass wrong. And you expecting somebody to do right by you after you just did them dead ass wrong is unrealistic. So like, I know you want the girl to say something and it would be really great and really nice if she said something, if she spoke up for you, if she stood in the gap and protected you, but you didn't do that for her, but you're expecting her to do for you what you didn't do for her. And that's not a fair expectation. The next part, we've touched on this a couple of times, is the Gayle King interview, which for the most part didn't go over well. The only thing people ever talk about with that interview is Meg lying to Gayle King. Couple things about this. Tori and Kelsey, prior to the interview with Gayle King, are online saying that Meg and Tori had a sexual relationship, which Meg, to that point, had never addressed. It's fair game as a journalist for Gayle King to ask the question. She's not completely out of pocket in the way that many people, mostly supporters of Meg, have said over the years. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe Gayle asked that shit. The Kobe Bryant thing was out of pocket. There was no need for that to come up at that time, especially given the way that he died and that the country was in mourning. In this case, it was a fair question, but I also say as a journalist, was it a necessary one? And I don't think it was. I don't hold anything against Gayle for asking it. I probably would not have asked, or I might have given a heads up, even if it's just in the context of the way that I asked the question. So you could prepare your mind real quick. And then it'd be like, I want to ask you about your intimate relationship with Tory Lanez, and then officially ask the question. So at least it's giving somebody a beat to like make a decision about how they want to answer the question. What also very much confused me about that whole situation, I just kept yelling. And this is one of my favorite lines. Where is the publicist? Where is the publicist? Because after the interview, Meg is like, I had no idea she was going to ask me that. Like, where did that question come from? Like, I was so blindsided. It was so left field. As a journalist, it was a completely obvious question to me. Megan seems to be completely blindsided. And I'm like, you don't have a publicist? Because a halfway decent publicist would have told you, we need to prepare in case this question comes up. And your answer should be, I don't know. It could be yes. It could be no. It could be, how is this relevant to me being shot? Because it is a very invasive question. And it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, whether you had sex with him or not. The question is, did he or did he not shoot you? Having sex with him is not a crime. Him shooting you is. And also, just statistically, more likely to be shot, actually, if you did have sex with him. The probability of you being shot by someone like you've never met before in your entire fucking life, very, very low. Someone that you've had sex with, very, very high. It shoots up. That's scary. After the Gail interview, and they post the clips of people, just being like, she's lying, which she was. She's like consumed with being in her phone. She's like reading and watching like all of the negative things that people are saying about her. And this is another case where I just like, I need your mama, I need your auntie. Meg's mama's a little bit older than me, which means she's staunchly Gen X, which means much like me, she got into adulthood before the advent of social media. I mean, social media, it's real, but it's not real. When you turn off your phone and if you never look at it, you don't know what the fuck is going on in it. Like turning off your phone for multiple days at a time, it's like taking the red pill. But Meg is just like consumed in her phone. And it was like, I wish somebody would take the fucking phone. Like it's clearly having a negative impact on everything. It's making everything that she's dealing with, like the real life shit, like the real life I got shot, the real life my mother died, the real life I'm beefing with my label, like the real life, like me and my best friend ain't besties no more and I don't have nobody around. Reading all this shit, like people over and over and over saying what an awful fucking person you are. I remember when I was on reality TV, that shit was so bad. It felt to me like everyone perceived me as America's villain. And my publicist and my manager at the time, like I would call them like having these massive breakdowns, sobbing like everybody hates me. My life is over. It wasn't just my career. It was my life is over. And then they would be like, what are you talking about? And I'd be like, oh my God, like these comments, like these people, they're leaving the comments and they're saying this and they're saying that. And they're just like, everything about me is just like, I'm a horrible person. And I'd never in my life been perceived like that before. Up until that show, like I had the blog and I was at Essence and I'd written some books and I was doing the speaker circuit and I was pretty much like, well, like there were some people that didn't particularly care for me, but I also wasn't exposed to like millions of people all at the same time, like just pouncing on me every like Sunday through Tuesday, like nonstop for 48 hours, telling me that I wasn't shit. And I didn't know how to handle it. It took a team of people to convince me that like, okay, so like everybody's not going to like you. People are absolutely going to criticize you, but these people were never going to support your shit anyway. You haven't done anything that is so irredeemable that people can genuinely think you're a villain. Like they're just saying that shit because it means nothing to them. They probably don't even think you're reading the shit. They think one of us is reading the shit. Like really, you need to turn over your social media to us, which eventually I did. My manager had to like lay out reality for me. And she was like, Demetria, I get more calls than ever for you to speak at shit. Your book sales are through the roof. The people want you to speak and they're offering all this money. People want you to be the spokesperson for these things. People want you to be in commercials. Like the phone is ringing off the hook. Like the audience that you want, the people who are cutting checks want you and ride for you. Like get some perspective, D. Everyone does not hate you. Are there people that do? Absolutely. Don't focus on them. Focus on the people that like you and cultivate that. Grow that. There's nothing you could do about the people that hate you. It's not real, D. It's not. It took forever for that shit to set in. Like to this day, like when people walk up to me, I still get very like, because I don't know what you coming with. Like, are you about to come up to me and tell me like I ain't shit? Because that happened too. Are you going to be like, Demetria, I love you so much. Like I listen to your podcast, me and my daughter and my mama and like a family thing, me and my man. And I'm still not comfortable like with people coming up to me to this day because of the like traumatic shit that happened when I was on that show. Okay. I say this because I feel like Meg doesn't have anybody who's putting everything in perspective. She's saying like all these people hate me, and it's like it's LeBron and it's Drake and it's Tory gaslighting and making this video with horse legs, and it's Joe Budden and it's academics, and then there's like countless people with like podcasts or just like making videos on TikTok talking about how much they hate Meg and how she's lying and like they wish she was dead and like all of these things. But at the same time, she's going on an international tour. She's headlining every major festival. She's the guest on Saturday Night Live. She's being honored by Forbes. She's doing all this epic shit. Her career is bigger and better than ever. WAP is breaking records on the charts, and she's still like, everybody hates me, everybody hates me, everybody hates me. No, they don't. There is a very vocal, loud contingent of very misogynistic men and the women who identify with them who make a lot of noise and talk shit all day because your name garners interest. The vast majority of those people don't feel no way about you outside of listening to the conversation. It's not like they hear it and then they're just like, oh, I just hate Meg. It's like they hear it and then they go back to working on whatever they was doing at work. Or they hear it and then they go back to picking up their kid from daycare. They hear it and then they go back to studying for whatever they're getting their degree in. Like, it's nothingness. It's just something to pass the time. But because it's happening to her, it feels so visceral and she's internalized it. But it's like, it's not really real. And there's no one around to tell her, put the phone down, or to make sense of your career is at a highlight. Like, why do you care about what the fuck Joe Budden thinks versus all these people who are paying all this money to come see you in concert? Why do you care more about what academics thinks over Saturday Night Live? Like, you got international mainstream fame and you over here focused on Joe Budden and academics. Sis, niece. Also, her thinking is a function of her grief, her depression, her PTSD. Like, your mind just does not function right. Logically, you should be able to figure out on your own. All these people saying they hate me, but SNL is calling me. So I think I'm actually good. But like, the way depression works, your mind just can't like just put things together that should be easy peasy. Like, just thinking to yourself, like, put the phone down instead of just constantly consuming content about how much people hate you. Not even looking for content about things validating you, just constantly reading how much people hate you. It's your mind turning on you, essentially, which half the documentary I was yelling, like, where is the therapist? Actually, most of the documentary, therapist, 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 therapist. As the documentary goes on, it doesn't really get much better, literally until like she gets a verdict on Tory Lanez. Like, nothing really goes right. She's preparing for a bunch of back-to-back international festivals, and she's at a fitting and she was like, I don't feel good, and like, it's a white guy. I don't know what role he plays on the team, but he was like, you could go to sleep, right? Like, if you don't want to do this, like, you don't have to do this. Like, we can do it another day. And she's like, no, I'm going to push through. And then she was like, and then from here, like, I have to go into choreography. So by the time she gets to choreography, she looks bad. Like, over the course of the documentary, and it's pretty much chronological, you can see her gaining weight and you can see her. The body is still bodying, but you can tell she's getting a little thicker. And then her face starts to break out really bad. And I'm like, in combination with like the gaining weight and then the face breaking out, and then like people asking her, are you okay? No. Like, she's not even trying to pretend. I just wish someone would get the girl into therapy. I know I keep repeating this, but it's just like the theme of what I was thinking throughout the documentary. So she has to go into choreography, and she's sitting there with Lorianne. She clearly doesn't want to do it. And Lorianne asked her how she's feeling, and she says, I feel hot and lightheaded. I understand that sometimes when you're dealing with, like high stakes things, like there's a lot of money riding on these festivals. You don't want somebody getting on the stage looking unprepared. It's a lot of work that goes into these performances, right? Like, there's a lot on the line. And so I get it. Like, you want someone to push through. And sometimes people do need a pep talk. But I'm like, at the point that somebody says, I'm hot and lightheaded and feel like I'm going to throw up, I would think that, learning new choreography, doing physical activity when you're feeling nauseous is probably not the best idea. Lorianne doesn't even say, like, do you need me to get you a glass of water? She says, I could get you a trash can, like you could throw up there. Meg wants to leave, and then Lorianne launches into this, like, I have a dream, see the mountaintop type shit, just gassing her. She's like, I can't let you go. And then she goes into some motivational speak about, this is the reality of being a global superstar. And, the only people I've ever seen like you are the greats. you're one of the greats, and this is what you've got to do to push through and do this and do that and do this and do that. Lady, if you don't let this girl go throw up in peace and then lay down, get her Alka-Seltzer or something, some water. Not even a glass of goddamn water. You're one of the greats. And I was like, yo, the gaslighting of this shit. Oh my God. So Meg keeps pushing through, like, because this is what she does with no damn support system. She says she's having nightmares. She says she's on edge even more. She has a complete meltdown. I mean, I shouldn't say complete meltdown. She kind of spins out. She spirals, but it's not a meltdown. Over a bag of chips. She really wanted some jalapeno chips. She kind of just needs something to go right in her life. She just puts all of this onto a bag of chips. And then when they don't have the chips, she just sort of spirals. Which, again, therapist. You need a therapist. Her cousin Lydia enters the picture, which I was kind of like, where's this woman been all this time? Lydia has a baby, which I was like, well, maybe she was off being pregnant. But I was so happy when cousin Lydia showed up, and I was like, can cousin Lydia come hang out with you? Because she was like, she's known me my whole life, and this is like my ace, is my homie, this is my literal cousin. Which I was like, your literal cousin, do she have a mama? Her mama don't give you no guidance whatsoever? Like, where are your people? I mean, Lydia just showed up, but she ain't show up enough. I mean, Lydia got a life too, but I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that Meg has like no support system, like no one. Let's see. She's performing on Saturday Night Live. Oh, this scene kind of pissed me off too. Thank God for La Roach. So Megan performs on Saturday Night Live and she starts crying during the performance. And so the team is backstage watching and they're like, is she crying? Somebody remarks that, like, I think she's really stressed out. You think? So Meg comes from backstage, and this was so sad. And she was like, do I look pretty? Did my hair look nice? She points out, and she was like, this is this type of shit that my mom would say. Like, I could go to my mom and get an honest assessment of what was going on. She was like, my mom would tell me what went right and what went wrong, and it was an opinion I could trust. And she was like, I just have nobody that does that for me. And it's like, in this moment, her team decides, like, we want to exhibit exactly what the problem is. So she's looking at clips and she's like, why does it look like I have a diaper on? And then everybody else, except for La Roche, is looking at the clip and they're like, no, you don't look like you have a diaper on. Like, Lorianne is very adamant. She's like, do not do this to me right now. I'm like, it's not about you. And she was like, you look great. This is an excellent performance. This is, she just keeps like gassing her. And it's not about like, was it an excellent performance? It's like, does it look like I have a fucking diaper on? Do we just have like a wardrobe malfunction? And everybody's like, no, we don't see anything. No. When clearly she's looking at it and she sees there's an issue. And finally, La Roche was like, okay, I see it and you see it. It's the issue. But overall, as an execution, like looking at the bigger picture, nobody's going to notice it. It was a really great performance. But it's like, you're gaslighting the girl. Like, you're looking at something, she can see it, and then everyone around her is pretending they can't see it. And when shit like that happens, it just makes you feel more and more like, I can't trust these people. Like, over something as small as, do you see that there was a wardrobe malfunction? No, we don't see anything. No. Everything's great. Everything's wonderful. I can't trust none of y'all motherfuckers. Party is in this scene. He never says a word. When Meg is leaving SNL, Party is walking out with her. He a big nigga. I was like, is that security? And then I had to look it up and I was like, no, Party is 6'5". Like, that's him. Meg and Party dated for about 3 years. I mentioned him earlier in the documentary that he was there for her graduation. So she has a boyfriend as she's going through like a bunch of this. And at one point he had been very supportive and then they break up. It's implied in one of her songs that it's because he cheated. But back up. She says that someone that she thought she could trust cheated. It doesn't necessarily say that it was Party. It could have been somebody else that she's dated while she was in the industry. She never says his name. Party does respond at one point and accuses her of having either lipo or BBL or something, but just like a real betrayal of trust. Like, she never called his name out. She never disrespected him. She never like gave details of what happened in their relationship. And then like he says these things, which may or may not be true, about what she's done behind closed doors. It's another deeper betrayal of trust. So throughout this documentary, she never mentions Party, not once. We literally just see like kind of like the side of his face and then him walking away with her, which people have mentioned in the documentary. They're like, she's out here acting like she has no support system, but she had Party and she never even acknowledges him in the documentary. Couple things. There could be a gag order in place. There also could be, which is probably more likely, to mention party in the documentary almost begs party to respond in some way. And previously, when he's done that, he's betrayed intimate alleged details about Meg's life. It's better as a strategy just not to give him a voice. She does this whole documentary and he's never mentioned. If he comes out now and starts saying crazy shit about her, he looks crazy. Because it's like she just did this whole documentary and she never mentioned you once. Not good, not bad, not indifferent. She kept your name out her fucking mouth. So why do you have something to say negative in response? She's not alley-ooping him to respond by saying anything about him, good, bad, or indifferent. It's actually a really great strategy. Shortly after SNL, she learns that her house has been broken into. Seems that people knew she wasn't going to be home. And Drake disses her all at the same time. And that's when she has a meltdown and she decides to go to therapy. She runs off. It's supposed to be for 2 weeks. She stays gone for a month. Really, she probably should have stayed like 3 months, 6 months, a year. Like it would have served her well. She goes off to this wellness retreat and she takes several different types of therapy. And the therapists help her process the shooting. And she says at one point, the therapist asked her, when was the last time you felt safe? And Meg couldn't answer the question. Like she genuinely can't remember the last time she felt safe, which is scary. I have real big safety issues. I've had them most of my life for various reasons that I don't want to get into. But the Mozambique thing triggered it real bad. And if you remember the Mozambique story, I was living in South Africa. I went to visit Mozambique. This crazy thing happens where this dude tries to like come into my hotel room uninvited. And I never gave him like the number to my villa. I don't even know how he fucking found me, but whatever. But that happens. And I go back to South Africa and then I go to London. I was okay in London. That's not true. For the first 2 months I was there, I would hear him calling my name, General Demi. Like the way I'm speaking to you now, I could hear his voice. Like it was bad, but I could fall asleep. I didn't feel like someone was going to walk in on me in the middle of the night. My mom came to visit me in London maybe 2 or 3 weeks after Mozambique happened. And I went and stayed in a hotel with my mom and I slept for maybe 14 hours. It's the first time I'd really gone to sleep, like REM, like fully knocked out sleep because I hadn't felt safe since Mozambique happened. Even when I got back to South Africa, I would try to go to bed and I would get up like 4 and 5 times to check the door to make sure it was locked. Even though I was on like the 12th floor of the building, like all the way in the back, it was a secure building. We had security at the front. Like it was in a safe area. Like just still, I would check the door over and over and over again. And I would only fall asleep because I was exhausted. And then I went to Paris from there. I was okay in Paris. It was a secure building and they had security outside. I never did figure out who lived in the building that required security. There was a constant security presence. So I was fine there. Mozambique happened, I want to say like in May. I don't actually go home until October. So this incident happened in May. I finally get back home like the beginning of October. I sleep for like 16, 18 hours the first couple nights that I'm home. Like my body's trying to make up for all the sleep that I missed all those months when I didn't feel safe. Told you the documentary triggered the fuck out of me. Meg comes back from therapy. She declares, I feel like a new bitch. We're on the upswing. When she finally decided to go to therapy, and this is one of the reasons when I do those like BetterHelp ads, and I'm like, go to therapy before you need therapy to keep yourself from like going over the edge. She said by the time she goes to therapy, she said, I'd never been suicidal, but she said she laid in bed for 3 days. She just couldn't get out of bed. She said she cried every day. She said at some point she had to call 911. She felt like she couldn't breathe. Sounds like a panic attack, anxiety attack. And she said she'd never been suicidal, but she had started thinking, I would rather not go through this than live through this. My girl was down bad. I've been in that space too. We're at the point where Megan is finally going to court. Says court starts tomorrow. She doesn't know what's going to happen. Her best friend, Kelsey, is called to take the stand for the prosecution. She gets on the stand and says she doesn't remember. At this point, I was like, girl, you taking it too far. I get not defending her on social media. I get being like, you know what, like ride it out. Like you didn't give a fuck about me. You want me to give a fuck about you? I don't. But she took it so far. She got into court and was like, no, I don't remember. No, don't remember anything. Man, I feel like in court you could have said something. You could have been like, fuck you. You've been tortured all this time. I really don't fuck with you. But just because of what it was when things were good, I'll get on the stand and tell the truth. Nope, nope, nope. I made this note. I said, whatever happened to Tory's bodyguard? Because he didn't testify. At the time of the trial, he never said anything publicly. I had to go look up what happened. So what I found is December 23, the bodyguard pops back up from wherever he's been. And the bodyguard says, Kelsey shot Megan. Which I was like, Kelsey more or less went to bat for Tory. Like she decided she just wasn't going to say anything. Like who shot somebody? I don't know. Could it be me? Could it be the bodyguard? Could it be Tory? I don't know. I didn't see anything. Like, you stood down and left your girl out there flailing. I mean, thankfully things went in the direction that she wanted them to go. The truth prevailed. But you left her out there flailing all this time, only for Tory's bodyguard to turn around months later and then accuse you of doing what Tory did. That's wild. Meg is still waiting on the verdict for the trial. Trial was in LA. That she finally goes home. She ain't been home this whole damn time. It's around Christmas. And I was like, she went home. The same house that got broken into. She feels safe going back there. Like, I mean, I know it's her house. Eventually she got to go back. But I wish that was kind of addressed in the documentary. But I guess maybe they're leaving it to the viewer to fill in the blanks there, which I did. So it's fine. Her whole face is broken out. Oh, I made a note here. I've talked about this before. I made a note to mention when folks ask why women don't speak up, I want them to think of this documentary. Megan spoke up and look at how she's dragged, punished really, for speaking up. You know how like if a woman doesn't say something, like if she doesn't follow like a very strict response to being assaulted, like it's like it happened at like 1 p.m. and you need to be on the phone with the police by like 1:05 and you need to have like all this evidence. Like it can't just be a rape kit. Like it's got to be on video plus witnesses, plus the man is confessing to it. Plus, like Jesus himself comes off the cross and tells everybody in a booming voice that it happened. Like it's a very specific criteria for women to be believed. And there actually is no criteria that any woman can meet. And there really is no criteria for the man to be held accountable. Like even the conversations about, say, R. Kelly, like him pissing on the little girl. No one debates whether that's facts. I mean, there's a video of it. But the accountability part, people be like, well, where was her family? Where were her parents? Where was her mama? Where was her daddy? She probably had a single mama. Her daddy wasn't around. Her mama was mean to him, and that's why he wasn't coming around. But it all goes back to it must be some woman's fault. It's never just a man's fault. It's never like, damn, that grown ass man ain't had no business pissing on that child. He ain't shit for that. Like it's always like, well, where was her mom? I also made note that Megan is a modern day Anita Hill. Remember Anita Hill, Clarence Thomas? Like why does this keep coming up on this podcast? About him, like the pubic hair on the coat. I always want to call it Pepsi because of the alliteration. But the pubic hair on the coat, or what's the other woman who accused Brett Kavanaugh, also Supreme Court Justice? Like he did this crazy shit. And people were like, no, we don't believe you. You need more people. Here, there are more people who also say he assaulted them. Because Anita Hill did too. She wasn't the only accuser. Here, I found more people. Like you said I needed more people. I found more people. They said the same shit happened to them. Fuck you bitches. Why y'all always getting in the way trying to disrupt shit? Which again, like, what is this Tory Lanez music that is just so compelling that people are just like, we got to go to bat. We can't let this one get away. Like, name a song. I cried multiple times to this documentary. I did a quiet sob. I didn't make noise. Like just a bunch of tears just ran down my face. Like my whole face was wet. When the verdict was announced and Megan started sobbing, I've been, paying attention to commentary online because that's, part of the job. And people are just straight up accusing her. They're like, Megan's an actress. And people are like, no, she's not an actress. She's a rapper. And they were like, no, talented people can be talented across the board. Like she's an actress as well. And all of those tears were fake. All of that crying was fake. I didn't see enough tears. I just saw her face was wet, but I didn't actually see tears fall. Like that shit wasn't for real. Like who cries like that? Somebody who's like deeply hurt from their fucking soul and feels like, I don't know, like she just got justice. Like she feels a sense of relief that maybe this is over. Like people are saying that if Tory is found innocent, like her career is over, like everything is on the line for her here. Like maybe like it's all going to be okay. She feels relieved. Like she says something like, if I didn't think there was a God before, I know there is one now. And then people were like, oh, now she's questioning Jesus. She didn't even believe in God beforehand. Now she suddenly believes in God. She was an atheist. I'm like, you people are nuts. You're nuts. Your misogyny is making you fucking crazy. Who was the woman that hugged her? Was that person ever identified? Because I was like, can this woman be like Megan's auntie? Because like Megan felt safe to like cry on her. And that could have been, she would have cried on anybody at that point because she was just like a wreck. But I was like, who was this woman? Like she seemed safe. Like she was there. That's half the battle. Like she seemed adult like. Like can she step in? Like literally, if Megan Thee Stallion called me right now, like I would go and just like be auntie. I would do it for a year just to make sure, just to get everything in order. Again, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm out here on like vibes and tequila, but like I just got just enough knowledge to help somebody 15 years younger me to guide them around like some crazy shit. Like just it's painful to watch this documentary. But at the end of the documentary, like we've been on quite the journey so far. Megan says that the hate against her didn't end, which I have eyes. I can read. I can see all the stuff going on online. But she does say that she's in a better place now. She's no longer like, how you feeling? Like, are you okay? No. She says that she's hopeful. I wrote in my notes that therapy changes things. And then she concludes the documentary. She says that she knows that her mom would be proud of her, which I started boohooing all over again. I was like, baby girl, she would have been proud basically no matter what you did. Like, I mean, yes, she's proud of you, but she would have been proud of you without all the crazy shit that you've been through. This is another reason why I wish there was like an auntie or even a daddy. So I remember when I got my divorce decree in the mail and going through that divorce, it's just a painstaking, never ending process. Like the fucking divorce took almost as long as a goddamn marriage. But when the divorce decree finally came, like I boo-hooed, I dehydrated myself. I cried so goddamn bad about that kind of cry that Megan let out. I had real big fat tears. I didn't even try to cover my face. Like, you ever just cry so hard, you just stand there? It's like my hands were just hanging there limp. And I was just there, just like crying, boo-hooing on the air mattress. Jesus. At my loft, because the bed wouldn't come. It took forever for that goddamn bed to come. I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. The one thing I had wanted that year is I wanted to be divorced by my birthday. I was turning 40. And the divorce decree didn't come in the mail. And I was so depressed on my 40th birthday that I was still legally tied to my ex-husband. Maybe like a month later, I was like, what the fuck? Why is this taking so long? I called my attorney and I was like, do they have an ETA for when the actual divorce decree is going to be signed? Because I've been sitting here waiting on it. And so she was like, oh, I didn't send it to you? It was signed, I think like July 7th or July 8th. So technically, I was divorced on my birthday. I just didn't know it yet. I had been depressed for so long. I had been drained for so long, like emotionally, financially, just like everything. It was just like the end of fucking earth. I called my dad and I was like, the divorce decree finally came. And he was like, well, on to the next one. And I was like, the next one? This ain't it? Like, we can't just be done? And he was like, no, that's not what life is. Like, it's always a next one. He was like, but this one is done. And he was like, we'll deal with the next one when it comes. What? That's life. I think Mozambique was probably like the big next one. There'll be one after that. Hopefully it ain't that bullshit again, but there'll be something after that because that's what life is. It's just highs and lows. There's a great line from, I'm going to butcher it right now, from This Is Us, where I think Randall and Jack, I think it's when he went to DC to visit Howard. And he says something about learning how to manage the lows because the highs will take care of themselves. I wrote that quote down somewhere. I don't know where I wrote it to quote it properly. But like, yeah, like life is just a series of ups and downs. It makes it significantly easier to deal with them when you have a support system. I ain't never been so grateful for my family and friends since watching this documentary. Like, just things that you take for granted. Like, my mom is sitting up here in South Africa with me right now. She went out. She was like, I don't want to just sit in the house trying to be quiet while you're recording. And I knew this was going to be a long episode. And I was like, all right, have fun. I take it for granted that my mom can come overseas and be with me for a month. I'm glad Meg's okay at the end of this documentary. I just really need to know that there's a support system, like for my own sanity. Just so like I ain't staying up at night worried about this girl. Like I need to know that like someone has shown up to stand in the gap. Like I know she's lived, she's had some life, but there's more to come. There's always more to come. As long as you live in, there's more good to come, but there's also more drama to come. And just like I just need to know somebody's there to help her navigate through it. Like you got through this part, but like the next part, and then the part after that, and then the part after that. Cause like you're 29, I'm 45. Like you gonna have at least like 4 or 5 more big ones before you hit 45. Like that's just life. I just need to know she's somebody there to make sure she okay. All right, that's the episode. We'll be back on Friday. Hopefully we'll still be living in a democracy and not under a dictatorship. Talk soon. Bye.